Hey everyone, AMR back in with another tier list. So for those of you that don't know, I actually just got back from Orlando at Universal Studios. So I thought what better video would be fitting more than to do a tier list video on all the rides. So again, a lot of the rides on here may or may not be listed, but I did try to do a bunch of different rides. If you haven't gone to Universal Studios, I highly recommend it. It is fantastic, way better than Disney in my personal opinion. And on top of which, if you're going to go to an amusement park here in like the modern age, you need to get a fast pass. Fast passes are for sure the way to go. But yeah, I appreciate everyone that's been following. But let's go ahead and jump into this. This could be actually quite a long video given that we have 19 different ones that we need to get through here. I'm going to go ahead and quickly change out what these categories are. So this should be back in a flash. All right, so I went ahead and changed out the categories here. So in this bottom tier, we either have do not ride or they just no longer have it anymore. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and add in Shrek 4D. So Shrek actually is no longer at the park anymore, unfortunately. There is like this giant building where it used to be. It's right next to the Minions ride. And unfortunately, it's just like not there anymore. They don't even have the sign up anymore. I remember that ride specifically as a kid because it kind of traumatized me. Like there's a part in that ride where you get stung in the back. Hated it, and I was definitely probably not going to look forward to riding that this time around anyway. So for that reason, I'm just going to go ahead and put it down in the did not ride category. But if I had to put it in any of these, I'd probably put it in the ride if there is no line. But starting off here, Despicable Me. So it's kind of odd because these three right here are actually in the exact order of which I rode rides at Universal Studios. So Despicable Me, I mean, I think that is a really good starter ride for getting yourself adjusted to the park. By no means do I think that this is a must ride. If you go on the Jimmy Fallon ride or even, well, I mean, I guess just the Jimmy Fallon ride is probably the most comparable ride to this. You're just like in a big type of like grandstand-ish type thing, and that itself moves as a big whole. So it was a very good starter ride to get you set up into the whole feel of what it's like to be on a motion ride. But I mean, it was okay. I would give it a solid, 6.5, 7 out of 10. And that's a pretty good rating for like what's supposed to be a kid ride. I thought that was really well done. One thing that I really have to give credit to on the whole Universal Studios side of things is that with every single ride that the ride is based off of a movie, a TV show, whatever, they got the original cast's actual voice to be incorporated, as well as sometimes you actually have the people like Vin Diesel and The Rock are actually in the Fast and the Furious playing along with whatever promo video that's going on. Same thing with Jimmy Fallon and so on and so on. But go ahead and go over to the Rip Rocket. So I think that Rip Rocket is one of those rides that are kind of underrated at the park. There really isn't a crazy long line for this ride. It's right when you walk in on the left-hand side, right behind the Minions ride. And I think it's between Minions and Transformers. Very, very fun. You get to pick your song. You get to play through it. It's got a crazy cool drop right in the beginning. And then also, if you didn't know, there is a little trick to where if you hold down the logo on it for 10 seconds and let go, you can enter in a code to play a secret song. And so I actually got to play a couple of different songs that weren't even listed as like your basic options. My wife actually showed me a TikTok where someone was doing a hack on it. And it was very, very cool. We rode that ride probably 5 or 6 times. That fast pass really comes in handy. In total, I think we waited about 3 to 4 minutes between each ride on the Rip Rocket. It paid for itself in gold. It was honestly one of the best experiences on a roller coaster I've ever had, and I have to give that credit where credit's due. Next up, you have Transformers. So I think that Transformers warrants riding it more than once. However, it is a motion ride. It's definitely not more of a roller coaster. I think that Transformers and SpiderMan are definitely going to be in a similar vein here. These two have to be, and by two I mean Spider-Man and Transformers, have to be the best motion rides at the entire park. Transformers, I only got to ride it once, unfortunately. I think that it just never lined up back with what we wanted to do. We spent a lot of our time in Islands of Adventure riding actual roller coasters, whereas the other side of the park was mostly motion pictures and more of like experience-based stuff. So next up is the Jimmy Fallon ride. So I kind of feel like Jimmy Fallon, I didn't have many expectations going into that ride. That being said, though, when we were actually on it, I had a blast. We were in the front row. It's It's an auditorium type thing where, similar to the Minions ride, you're like on this giant bench. There's like 20 people that sit on a bench per row, and sitting in the front row is fantastic. However, we rode it again and we were like in the 5th row, and it just was not the same experience. And for that, it kind of ruined it for me. Otherwise, I probably would have put it up here. We actually rode it again because of how much I liked it. But after figuring out that it was mostly based on the fact that we were in the front row, it kind of ruined that experience for me. And we didn't actually ride it again after that. On a side note, with a lot of these motion rides, if you ever go to Universal, like we did in June, it is extremely hot, and these are great ways to get out of the sun. They have AC that is just blasting in there, and honestly, most of the rides that you ride, the lines are moved inside for that specific reason, because you will literally cook outside if you stay out there the whole time. It's just a different kind of heat. It's so humid. But yeah, for that reason alone, I think that warrants riding some of these motion rides more than once. Next up, we have the Mummy. So unfortunately, I didn't get to ride this one. It was down while we were at the park. My wife actually said that that's probably one of the scariest rides there because of how loud it is. It is like extremely loud. I did get a really cool picture with the guy who was portraying to be like a pharaoh or whatever. I was kind of looking forward to this one. I had ridden it once when it actually came out, but I haven't ridden it since, and I thought it'd be a really cool way to do it. But it was down, so I wasn't able to do it. So I'm going to put Fast and Furious up next here as like one of the worst rides in the entire park. For one, the ride is like 30 seconds long. It is extremely short. The plot line is really dumb. You're basically like on a party bus going to like an after party from a race, but then you end up getting attacked by Shaw and his gang, which Shaw is the villain from, I think, Fast and the Furious 2 with Rome and Paul Walker in it. Obviously, Paul Walker is not in part of the entire ride, but you pretty much have the entire cast outside of him. You have The Rock, you have Vin Diesel, you have the guy who plays Rome. I don't know what his actual name is, and then you got the supporting cast of like Vin Diesel's wife, girlfriend, whatever you want to call her. It just wasn't worth the wait. It had a really cool waiting area though. You got to see a couple of super pimped out rides, like you had the Nissan Spider, and you had like a really like to the nines type of Dodge Challenger. Of course, they had the neon lights underneath it, and they had like the butterfly doors and the engine that was outside of the hood. Really cool, great photo ops, but the ride as a whole really just didn't hit that great for me. Gringots was good. I would definitely ride it if there's no line. I'll put it this way. You definitely want to go on it once and then make up your mind as to whether or not you want to go on it again. I feel like they could have done a lot more with the ride. I thought that the coolest part about the ride, honestly, was the fact that you were like going down into what you think is like a Gringotts bank. And a lot of Gringotts from the Harry Potter movie is like you are so far underground. They played a really good job into making the waiting area interactive and making you feel like you're going way below Earth's surface. And honestly, the ride was actually pretty kick-ass, but I only rode it once because I thought that the actual ride itself, it didn't do as much in comparison to some of these other rides that we'll end up getting to up here. So next up, you got Men in Black. You have to ride it at least once while you're there. It's very interactive. It's super fun. However, you could get a little nauseous with all of the spinning and moving around. I feel like of the rides that are motion based, it's probably one of the better ones. It's definitely better than your Gringotts and your Jimmy Fallon ride and Despicable Me. I'd have to put it like right about here, just because you're actually shooting aliens. You get to like see your score. You can compete with like whoever you're with at the park, or just like maybe you're doing a single ride and you're just competing against whoever. It's really fun, interactive, and honestly, like I said, it's just a great way to get out of the heat and relive some of those like kid laser tag experiences. Next up, you have The Simpsons. So The Simpsons was a complete shock to me. I am not a huge Simpsons fan. I think that is the longest ongoing TV show in existence. I really don't watch The Simpsons a ton, but I felt like it was one of those rides that a lot of people say, if you have no expectations, go on it and you're going to love it. And I went on it, and I got to say, I really, really liked the ride. You have like this super off type, I'm going on a kid ride. When you're going through the waiting area, it's all about Krusty the Clown. And the guy that ends up playing with Krusty, I forget what his name. I think his name is just Bob. He's like escaped from prison. He's trying to kill you and all that kind of stuff. And very, very fun. I thought it was an awesome way to incorporate both the motion picture ride as well as kind of like a roller coaster aspect to it. If I had to guess, it's just one of those rides that's on the hydraulic press and it's doing a lot of this. But there's a couple of like surprises in there. I'm not going to spoil that because I feel like if you don't know about it, then it makes the ride that much better when you do experience it in real time. But definitely one of those rides that surprised me, and I would have ridden it more than once had we had more time, but we were only there for 3 days. Next up, you got E.T. It sucks, honestly, because E.T.'s one of like the household rides at the amusement park. But honestly, it's a little bit odd to me. The ride is not very well maintained. It's not modernized. It's like whatever the ride looked like when it originally came out, it still looks like that. It is it's very dated. You are on like that bicycle that like the movie is notorious for, with the guy like riding, like as you can see it right here. Like you're on a bicycle like this next to someone else, and ET is going in and out of like this basket on the front. Really weird. You go through like this foresty area that has a bunch of neon colors. You almost feel like you're tripping. And the whole concept is to like get ET back to his home planet. And you actually go to ET's home planet, and then you see all of ET's like friends and family and stuff that he was around. You're like, what the ET is hot as for what he came from. And so I don't know. I thought the ride could have been updated quite a bit, and it really wasn't. There was no line whatsoever. So definitely go on it just so you can see a little bit of history of like one of the oldest rides in the entire park. But for that reason alone, I have to say it's just dated and it needs to be updated. Next up, you have the Incredible Hulk. I'm going to put Incredible Hulk as Ride It More Than Once. I would love to put it up here. But that being said, it is a little rough. So I don't feel when you're on the rocket, or when you're even on Velocicoaster, for instance, those rides keep you a little bit more secure so your head's not banging around. With the Incredible Hulk, it is so shifty and it's so fast that your head is kind of banging back and forth between some of the bars that are keeping you in, and you almost feel like you just got out of a 10-round fight with Mike Tyson. It is way too much. It is an awesome ride, but if you ride it 2 times in a row with the Fast Pass, you're really going to feel a little dizzy, a little out of it, and you're going to take a little bit to recover. I thought the ride was built in a way that made complete sense. You know, you definitely feel like you just got in a battle with the Hulk, but I feel as though you definitely kind of you need some recovery time after getting off that ride. And then also one other negative to it. I don't want to be a negative Nancy here, but the rides are like pitch black, like the actual seat that you sit in. And so if you're from Orlando, you know how hot it is. And after the ride's over, you're kind of just sitting, waiting for the other coaster to take off. So you're just baking in the sun in these black leather seats. And you get so sweaty just from like that little 15, 20 seconds that you're sitting out in the sun. Very, very hot, but I enjoyed the ride a lot. I can tolerate that quite a bit, but I know a lot of people have said in the past that that ride's just too jerky for them. Next up, you got SpiderMan. SpiderMan's one of those rides that I think kind of takes the cake for being one of the best rides at the entire park. It is a motion park, or a motion ride, kind of like the Transformers, except I'm a big Marvel fan, and so I'm a little biased, obviously. However, they were able to incorporate like a bunch of different villains. They had Doc Ock, they had the Green Goblin, they had the water guy or whatever. There was a bunch of different ones that they were able to incorporate into the ride, and I thought it was so well done. You're basically trying to be a photographer, like peeping on Spider-Man behind the scenes, but you end up getting in trouble because instead of taking pictures of Spider-Man in the action, you actually get caught in between a battle between Spider-Man and the villains. It's a very, very fun ride. It's about 1 minute and 15 seconds. So it's rather like one of the longer ones, and it's done in a certain way that you don't feel herky or jerky. And it's got some 3D aspects, it's got some 4D aspects, and overall you leave the ride going like, let's get back in line. So next up we have Skull Island Reign of Kong. I feel like it's one of those rides that you can try out if there's no line. They have a really cool waiting area where you're basically like on that island in the King Kong that came out, I think it was like in 2009, 2008, the one with Jack Black and Naomi Watts. But Like you're on that island with those like people that have like the skulls and stuff. And that's like what the waiting area is like. It gives you kind of like that ominous, creepy type of feel, like you're going into an area where you shouldn't. And the only downside is like King Kong and Fast and Furious are very similar. You're both getting like on this bus type aspect, and you're just being kind of paraded through this track, and there's just basically two big screens on both sides of you. You get in the fight between, like you get in the middle of a fight between King Kong and the Tyrannosaurus Rexes. And so I thought that the ride was pretty cool. There's a lot of jerking around that goes on, and it's probably about 1.5 minutes. It's one of the longer rides at the park. It was worth the wait, I'll say. But I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more with the ride. It would have been really cool to make that into an actual ride instead of just like a 3D motion picture. But yeah. Next up, you have River Adventure. So I'm going to put this down as like one of the worst rides at the park. I thought that they could have done a ton more. A lot of the dinosaurs in it looked very, very like mosh posh put together. Like obviously they're going to be robots and stuff, but if you look at the dinosaurs in the Velocicoaster or even the Raptor Encounter, those look like realistic. These dinosaurs that were on this ride, you could basically tell that they were just plastic moldings with like a painting over them. They were moving like this. It was very bad. And then the T-Rex at the very end was probably the only saving grace of the entire ride. I thought that was pretty cool, actually. And then you do like the giant drop off. It is kind of a water-esque ride. So if you're not into that, then try and avoid it. But I thought the ride was okay. There was a bit of a wait on it, so I wasn't overly thrilled about that, especially how the ride actually turned out to be. So I'm a little biased there as well. So Harry Potter and the Hidden Journey is definitely one of those rides that you have to ride more than once. I thought it was a fantastic ride. The only thing that I have that's a knock against it is that it is scary as hell. I often thought when I was watching those Harry Potter movies that, oh, I could totally do what Harry Potter's doing in those. I think it'd be so cool. But then when you're actually on a 4D ride, what Harry Potter experienced going through the Forbidden Forest, you see those giant spiders. They like spray out this water at you as they're like hissing. You have the Dementors. You go through like that snake area, like the one that Harry Potter faces off against. I think it's in Chamber of Secrets. There's a lot of shit that Harry Potter went through where you're like, damn, I would have died in the first movie. And it's very fun, very updated. It is one of the newer rides at the park. My wife said that when she came to Universal Studios in 2016, that it was one of the newer rides, and the wait was crazy long. It's super cool because it's actually one of the rides inside of the Harry Potter Hogwarts exhibit. Like you actually have to go through Hogwarts in order to get to the ride, and I thought that was such a nice cherry on top. We rode that ride 4 or 5 times, and I was only able to keep my eyes open on the first go around, after which I think I've closed my eyes for some duration of the ride. Which is kind of scarier in my opinion. If you close your eyes and you open them up and then you got a Dementor right in your face and you get even more scared. But it was a very, very fun ride. Give it a go and tell me what you think down in the comments. Next up, Flight of the Hufflepuff. Easily probably one of the worst rides at the entire park. If you have a niece or a nephew or even a small child, then for sure give it a go. But me and my wife, who are both in our 20s, went and we actually waited in line for this for about 25-30 minutes. The ride itself, I think, lasts about 30 seconds. Super short, no big drops. It doesn't even really go that fast. It's supposed to be kind of like a kiddie starter roller coaster ride. There's no ups and downs or anything like that. It just seemed like you had to go on it because it was there, not because you wanted to. And you just wanted to see what all the hype was about. And, there's people in the line. Let's go ahead and go through it. And then my wife and I, after we got out of line or after the roller coaster, we looked at each other and we're like, that's it. Okay. Never doing that again. So next up here, Hagrid's motorcycle ride. Without a doubt, without question, the best ride at the entire amusement park. The wait time for this can range all the way up to 180 minutes. And I'll tell you what, it's worth every single second that you wait for that ride. Not only is the ride spectacular, but the waiting area is fantastic. You're basically going through Hagrid's entire, groundskeeping type buildings that he has to maintain. You go past his little hut, you go into like his little workshop, you go through like a long cave, The ride itself is the longest ride in the entire amusement park. I think it's just shy of 2 minutes long. You go past actual Hagrid on the ride, and you have a person who's either on the motorbike or in the sidecar. My fiance and I rode the ride 3 times, and like flip-flopping, or flip-flopping and flip-flopping back. And luckily we were both wearing our honeymoon pins, and the person, while we were getting off the ride, stopped us and said, "What are you celebrating?" We said, "Honeymoon." They said, "Oh, do you want to go again?" So we said, "Yep." She took us right back to the front of the line, and we got to go again. So we got to ride Hagrid's ride 3 times in less than the amount of time that was listed on the estimated wait time. So it's like 100 minutes, and we got to ride it 3 times in that time span. It was a fantastic ride, worth every second. It has a couple of super hidden, it has a couple of features that are very well kept secrets, and honestly they make the ride so enjoyable. I'm not going to spoil anything. If you want to go ahead and do that research, you go ahead and go for it, but you are not going to want to miss riding Hagrid's motorcycle ride at least 1, possibly more times at the park. It is not fast pass based right now, so even if you have a fast pass, you still have to wait along with everyone else, but the ride is worth every second. Next up, you have Velocicoaster. I think that this one takes a solid 2nd place. Velocicoaster, again, it is immune to the fast pass, so you have to wait in the same line as everyone else, even if you have fast passes. But they did such a great job on not only the waiting area, but also the ride itself. It is basically like you are riding on a velociraptor. Like, there's parts in the Jurassic World where the camera will be like, they'll be running next to the velociraptor, and then the velociraptor will just like kind of speed up. The ride does that 2 or 3 times, and you go so fast. You kind of go like this in it, rather than like most roller coasters, you kind of just tilt to the side, you go around, you wait a little bit, then you tilt to the other side, you go up and down. This roller coaster was like you were on a raptor, you're going back and forth, you'd speed up. And it was just so well put together. Again, was one of the longer waits that we had to do, about 80 minutes, maybe 60 minutes. But you're definitely not going to be disappointed going on it. But that's going to do it for this list. So as the top 4 rides, not a big surprise to me, honestly. You have Hagrid's motorcycle ride, Velocicoaster, Rip Rocket, and then you have the SpiderMan motion picture. Now, some of the worst ones at the park: Fast and Furious, E.T. Adventure, River Adventure, and Flight of the Hufflepuff. So that's going to do it. As always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and also let me know down in the comments down below whether or not you totally agree with some of these rides, or if you think that I messed up on my rankings altogether. But I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.